Yeah, thanks, eh? Thanks, yeah. Just tough.
Jake, can you give us an update on Curtly?
Yeah, so he's going for an op tomorrow. Looks like he's fractured the bone in his cheekbone. Yeah, but I mean, it's a fracture. It's not. When I say it's not too bad, it's a fracture. Put a plate in, try and get him in as quickly as I can. Not because we need him in the next 2 weeks, obviously, but to get him ready for the tests. I think again, every kid wants to be in the test squad. And credit to our medical staff. Found a doctor. We'll do him tomorrow morning early. So, that gives him. It's a little bit like the Dupont thing. Dupont got injured, got that operation the next day. So, it's always nice for our young players to know that the medical staff are trying to put his interests, obviously take his interests seriously and make sure that he can get ready, whether it's 3, 4, 5 weeks, at least then by the time the international window starts, he's back.
Coach, how nerve-wracking were those last few minutes when Benetton was camped in your half?
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking for 80 minutes. We got a try, and then we got a line break and dropped the ball over the try line. Dropped 4 kickoffs in a row. Every time we scored, we dropped the kickoff. Gave them a scrum in 22. But the one thing that I'm happy about, because it's like a bittersweet feeling, is we found a way to win. We have grown as a squad. I think we would have lost that game 2 years ago. Even the way we closed it off, I thought Willie was outstanding, the way he dictated from the back there by keeping them in their half. And it's funny. I mean, it sounds like an obvious thing. The last scrum 2 years ago, we would have run it. We would have called, listen, let's have a go. Probably dropped it, intercepted, whatever, and then thought, why didn't we get Elrich to run to the touchline and finish the game off? So it looks like for you guys, looks like a normal thing, but I can see that's where we learned over the last couple of seasons is, wouldn't have been untoward for Willie and Gerson to say, okay, come, we're going to go and score now. That is the worst thing that could have happened. So the understanding and the control at the end and the way they found to win, because let's be fair, that last block of defence there was outstanding. I mean, a lot of teams would have probably leaked a point or gone off sides and given them a penalty, and then who knows what would have happened. And yeah, I mean, they had that 2-on-1 just before half time. They dropped it, but then we dropped the ball over the try line and Squisson tried to dot it down. So it's one of those things that I think you'll all appreciate. Knockout rugby, anything can happen.
And Coach, it seems like the 2 wingers that finished the game might be your best 2 wing options for a tough semi-final.
Yeah.
The timing of the injuries to
unless you're a selector.
Just from the outside.
Yeah. Unless you're a selector, because
how disruptive or what is the timing of the injury to 2 World Cup winners when you're getting to this business end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to lose Kanan and Curtly? I mean, especially when Willie knows them like the back of his hand. But, I said it to you before when I started here this year, we need to have depth. We need to trust the other players. We can't just rely on the same 15 being on the field all the time. And that's another thing I'm really happy about. Put all the bench on. Reinhard Ludwig's a young guy, that front row. I mean, Kloppers is a young front row player. And the way they finished the game with a relatively inexperienced group of players, and Sergio hasn't played for a while. That's the first time he's played. And to mark, Minicello and that Fijian winger and Feki Toa, you've got to be on top of your game. And I think it would be wrong of me not to say they're a good team. I mean, let's not underestimate. That's an Italian group of players. There are probably 25 of them that are in the Italian squad. They've played the All Blacks. They've played. They haven't played Mickey Mouse Test matches. They play England in the Six Nations. They play France in the Six Nations. And then you add Fijian winger, South African fullback, All Black centre, South African lock in Eli Snyman, 2 Argentinians in the front row, an Argentinian fly half. Well, that just shows you that they're not what people think they are. They're much better than people give them credit for.
Jake, at the end of the game there, as you mentioned, it was a little bit nerve-wracking for the fans watching it. But as you mentioned, players had some good discipline there. Oh, I think a lot of folks were worried there might be an offside, but they held their ground, and that was quite a stand there. What do you attribute that to? The players having grown as a group and knowing each other and having good discipline?
I think exactly that. And that's what we spoke about afterwards. Is that shows a lot of maturity in a short space of time. We would have gone offsides there. We would have dived over, gone into the breakdown. Maybe leaked a try, shot out, got them to step inside and score a try there. And then it's overs cadovers. And I know it goes to injury time and all that, but still, you had the game in your hands. That is the growth I'm talking about with this team. And there's a lot to be said as well for the resilience. I mean, a guy like Gerard Steenkamp last week got a bang on his shoulder, and he fronted up this week and played 65, 70 minutes or whatever, or 64 minutes. Just shows again how players in the Bulls want to be part of the team. If you think about it, a guy like Gerard Steenkamp could quite easily have said, listen, got Springbok trials coming up soon, got a couple of international games. If you don't mind, I'd like to sit out and not play this one. It says a lot for the group that he wants to put his hand up and play.
Like we all know how important basics are in playoff games. Are you a bit worried that you couldn't really dominate it in the scrums today?
No.
First thing, and then the other thing, it turned around lots of ball. Did you miss Marco Verstappen?
Yeah, those are things you can fix, though. That's what I said. We dropped 4 kickoffs. So now it looks like they get 4 scrums in your 22. And now, think about it. If we get 4 scrums in the 22 of the opposition every time as a given, that's a hell of a position for a defensive side to be under. So as I said to them, we can fix that. That's not something we can't fix. Scrum-wise, I think, again, we underestimate. There's an Argentinian loosehead, Argentinian hooker, Irish, Italian tight head, Italian lock, another Italian lock, 2 guys on the bench that play for Italy. And so, they again, their scrum is strong. But, the one thing that's great about rugby is when you don't play well and you win. That's the nice thing about rugby. When you don't play well and you still get a result. Many teams play really well and still lose. So for me, it's like, let's recover, let's get ready, let's get our bodies right. It's not going to get any easier now. It could quite easily be Leinster and Munster in 2 consecutive weekends. You're talking about 2 of the biggest clubs in the world. I can't now go and think, geez, boys, we're doomed now because this has happened and the scrum didn't dominate and we haven't got a winger who's out or lost another winger. The interesting thing is 160 minutes left of rugby. And let's be fair, all of you sitting here didn't think Benetton could beat us. There's no one here that thought Benetton could beat us, and they nearly did. So, the chances are we probably got no chance against Leinster and no chance against Munster in everyone's eyes. But that's sometimes a nice place to be because Benetton showed today that if you really play well, you can win a knockout game.
Coach, with a semi-final coming up, losing guy like Kirtley and Cameron looked like he had a shoulder injury, and some of your starting players out.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with your depth in the squad? Have they answered a lot of the questions that you might have had?
Well, I'm hoping, and I'm not going to give the team away, but I'm hoping Marcel's back next week, Marco's back next week. All of a sudden, that gives you 2 more really senior players. Backs-wise, David Creel's played wing. He's been good under the hard ball. There's other centres we can pick. We played Province yesterday in a friendly. Some guys played really well in that Province game as well. So, Feki Toa hasn't played for a long time. Came back, he looked like he had been playing every single week. So sometimes we might have to think out of the box just in terms of what we want to get out of the game. I'm going to, obviously, when I get home now, have a look at the Leinster-Ulster game again because it's busy being played now. And then I'll get a good feeling for what the call has to be. And you have to sometimes be brave. Sometimes you've got to, can't be picking the team, according to what you guys think might be. You might have to change it a bit. I thought the one thing Benetton did differently to the last game is their bench was incredibly powerful. You look at their bench in terms of what they brought on. I think, I don't know the number, but I would think that out of those 8 players, maybe 5 or 6 of them are international rugby players, which means they didn't get worse. Means they got better. So who knows? Maybe next week we might think out the box a bit. We have to play Leinster, and I'm using before. I mean, I'm only doing it on the rankings. And then we're going to have to think about what we think is the best way. Once I watch the game and I understand what they're trying to do or what they think they might expose us on, then we'll put the team together that I think can win, or that I hope can win.
Jake, you didn't take your person off
Yeah.
until the end. Any reason?
He probably would have been cross with me if I took him off because he
Yeah.
wanted to kick the winning kick. It's one of those difficult things. Didn't put the 9 or 10 on. And one of the things that I think when you get to knockout games now, you've got to win the game. It's not a case of, you go on and play 10 minutes or you go on and play 15 minutes. I think anyone who knows, if you get to a World Cup and you play in the last couple of games, or you get to a URC final, semi-final, quarter-final, it's not about giving guys chances. It's about, as a coach, sitting there and going, right, I'm gonna make sure that we keep the cohesion going and keep the level heads on the field, or guys who feel the pressure. Sometimes you make a change. The guy goes on, doesn't really have an understanding about what the pressure is. I mean, we all think a guy sits on the touchline and he's watching and he goes, okay, that's what I need to do, but it doesn't always work like that. So it wasn't for any other reason that I just thought, look, I think by the time I'd realized that we might be okay, it was too late to put a guy on. I thought, I'm not going to do it for 2-3 minutes now and make a statement for a guy to get 3 minutes game time. And also, it crossed my mind, if they score a try and it's 27 all, I've got 2 guys on the bench. They had nobody. So what would happen if you go to 10 minutes injury time, then all of a sudden I've got 2 guys I can call on, even if, one goes to the wing and Huison goes to centre, which he played for Racing Metro. It was a little bit of me thinking ahead in terms of if they score and it's 27 all, when they got no one left and they'd used their whole bench, I at least had 2 guys that I could hold back for the extra time.
Just one thing, sorry. How nervous was the team? We got the impression that they were a little more nervous than we expected.
Yeah. No, they were. I mean, I think you'd all understand, guys, that when you get to a quarter-final, it's probably the hardest game to get up for. I mean, next week we play Leinster. Again, I don't want to repeat myself, but if it's Leinster, I don't have to say anything. I mean, they drilled us. They drilled us there. And what am I going to say that's going to make them feel differently about getting up for this game? And we went there, we go to Munster. They beat us here. I mean, I don't have to say anything. So it's like any sportsman. I mean, any sportsman who plays at this level, the quarterfinals are always the one that you've got to work the hardest on. It's because you're close, but you're not close enough. It's like anything. If you play in a quarterfinal, it's not, you don't get the feeling you can win it. But now there's 4 teams left. Now you can almost feel like you've got a chance. And obviously the final is like we would know. Final is anything is possible.
Jake, you guy like Kirtley, for instance, same with other teams you've coached, a guy like Brian and Bonnie, you can see the almost the spring that he puts in everybody else's
Yes.
step when he scores after 25 seconds. And it almost felt when he went off the field that there was just a bit of a dip as such. Just this week, whoever you face this week, how do you counter that sort of psychological, I suppose, thing in the team where they know there's never going to be a Kirtley or Kane? And
Well, I think the one thing you do, Brendan, is that you probably praise the guy who came on unexpectedly so early in the game. I don't think Sergio in his wildest dreams thought he would play that much rugby against this opposition. And that's, again, I suppose that's the art of coaching. Is now what do I say and what do I do this week for them all to understand that, I mean, that every player is really, really fortunate to be involved in this game. But Sergio's won the URC, guys. He's the only guy in the Bulls change room who's actually won it. So to have him there and and have his experience. I mean, he's played against the Bulls when we were rampant, and they won 18-13. So I don't think I'm going to have to struggle too hard for him to understand that he's got another chance. Some sports people, I like Jonah Lomu, never won the World Cup. He's probably the greatest rugby player ever played. And so the fortunate thing for these kids is they play to win another tournament. You could play, I mean, I know lots and lots of rugby players who've played and played and played and never won anything. So to have them ready this week and another semi-final, and of all the years we've been together, it's another knockout game. I don't think I'm going to have to say too much. I think I'm going to have to just get the selections right. I'm going to have to get the combinations right. I'm going to have to get the bench good enough for us to use the skill and the depth that we've created. And those are the things that I'm going to have to control in the next couple of days.
It's going to sound like a strange thing, but Marco said that the cooler weather, as opposed to last time, helped them quite significantly.
Yeah. Well, it's nice because we're playing them in October when we get to Benetton in the next round. So hopefully it's hot.
Coach, one of a key theme for a big match like this that is coming over the weekend will be a full house here. The crowds have
I'm
not
glad
really
you
been-
said that. No, I'm glad you said that because I'm going to say the one
Yeah.
thing I would beg the media to send this week is we're going to need everybody here. We need 52,000 people here like we did against the Stormers. There's no use getting a home game and not using that as an advantage. And I understand people are, it's the middle of the month. People struggle. They don't always have the money to pay. It's got 2 kids. You want to bring them to rugby. You bring them to the quarterfinal, then the semi-final. Okay, chances are, and again, we could be away, but then there's 2 test matches and one is at Loftus. So the average guy who lives in Pretoria doesn't really have the income to visit quarterfinals, semi-finals, Ireland test match. So I'm hoping now, my plea to the public is we're going to need them. We need whoever comes here to feel as though the Loftus faithful are actually in full cry. One of the questions they asked me now, the coaches, there weren't many people here. And I said, that's because we struggle financially with, the average family can't afford to watch four games of rugby in a month with 2 kids, and his wife. That's 4 tickets. The average family can't really, especially in the middle of the month, afford that. So hopefully next week we'll get a few more people. And as I said, hopefully even guys who live in Joburg who can drive down the highway, hopefully they also come and watch. Because let's be fair, guys, this is the dress rehearsal of the test match that's at Loftus. They're going to bring almost the Irish team here. So there's 2 things that are nice about it. One is we can measure how good we are against Ireland. And 2 is it gives all these players who want to play for South Africa a first-hand chance of showing the national selectors and Rassie that they can compete against the best players. Now, that's from my side. That's what I can control. Is I've got to create this week everything possible for every boy who wants to be a Springbok to feel like he can compete against Leinster or Ulster.
Jake, I know I'm putting the cast well before the horse
Yes,
because there's no result just yet from the other game. But
he's just trying to check the score.
obviously, you played Leinster and away, and they put you away.
Exactly.
You're now playing them at home. In your sort of trying to sort things out in your head trying to sort things out for next week. How do you factor in for the fact that you're playing at home, and how do you versus fixing whatever you felt was
Yeah.
wrong with the first
Well,
time?
son, let me say this firstly. I hope next week's boiling hot. So that's the first thing. And I can't control the weather, but I'm hoping it's hot. And the one really positive thing is they beat us 31-3 in the opening game of the first year, and we beat them in the semi-finals at Leinster. So it's not something that hasn't been done by our group. And as I said to you, I repeat what I told you. When it gets to knockout rugby, anything's possible. When anything has happened, we get a good start like we did today, then they're under pressure. And the one thing which is significantly different, all the pressure today was on us. Next week, all the pressure's on whoever comes here. And if it's Leinster, they're probably going to have more pressure than we are. Because let's be fair, guys, the expectation is that Leinster should be winning with the international roster they have. They should be winning, they should be winning in the URC. And they played in 3 European Cup finals. That's like anything. You can, you're a football man. Real Madrid, whatever. You don't get to World Cup or European Cup finals unless you can play. So I suppose what I'm answering to you, Sim, is, I can only control the things I can control. Hopefully it's hot. Hopefully we can regroup. We can just look after our bodies this week and mentally just go into the game with a belief that it's been done before. We've beaten Leinster in Leinster, and we got to believe that can happen in Pretoria as well. And then I really believe it can be.
I was about to ask how many times are you going to play that video?
Well, I want to share with you as well. We're the only South African team that have ever played Leinster's full-strength side, and this will be the third time. There's no other franchise who's played Leinster's full-strength side. Not one. In 3 years, not one of the other franchises in South Africa have played Leinster's full-strength side. Because when they came here, they brought their second stringers, and in the beginning of the year, when we toured there with the South African sides, they were at the World Cup. But there's a positive to that, because it means we've played their best players. This is the third time. And, you've got to get something out of that. As a player, if you're playing in any high-level sport, if you play Nadal 3 times, you're going to be better in week 3 or third time than you would if you've never played it. If you play Tiger Woods in golf, it's the same thing. So I don't want to give you a motivational speech tonight, but what I am saying is I'm really, really understanding of the fact that we've measured ourselves against the best. And whatever they've chucked at us, we've got it right sometimes, we've got it wrong sometimes. Who knows? If you keep betting on roulette red, sometimes it goes to black.
17-0 to Leinster.
Hey?
17-0 Leinster.
There we go.
Seeing as we're speaking of Leinster, you talked about pressure coming here. I suppose the other pressure on them then is the fact that they haven't won the URC in 2 years. They've lost 3 European finals in a row, and that pressure to succeed is going to be huge on them.
Of course. And I mean, it's normal and it's human. They also want to make the Irish team that have to come and play at Loftus against the Springboks. So, that's what sport does. That's what the uniqueness of sport does. And I've said it to you many times, Brendan. People follow teams around the world to be there for the day when their team wins a game that should never happen. You go and ask any sporting guy who follows his team around the world, you say, I was there the day the Boks won or I was there the day Real Madrid won in Barcelona, or I was there. That's what's so unique and fascinating about sport. So I'm not now telling you they will feel pressure. Of course they'll feel pressure. They've got an unbelievable team. I mean, their budget is probably 3 times as much as ours. They've got more international caps than we've got URC caps. But saying that, and I repeat myself, is knockout rugby is a strange thing. Today, quite easily lost to Benetton. All of you guys would say, "Geez, how did that happen?" Well, that's what sport does.
Last question, Chris.
Jake, a couple years ago, people had questions about South African sides coming to the URC. And we saw, of course, that the Southern Kings and the Cheetahs have been there previously and kind of a test run. But the 4 teams coming, including the Bulls. But now we've seen the Bulls and Stormers do very well these past few years. You've been in the final, the 2 of you, at Cape Town the first season. You got to the quarterfinal last year. Now back to a semifinal this year. Are you happy or thrilled with the progress we see with South African sides proving that this was the right decision to go there to the north? You've got the same time zone, and that makes an impact here. So after 3 seasons URC, I imagine you've got to be pretty thrilled. Also, a couple of years ago, people were shaking their heads at the Bulls going, what's going on there? But the team seems to be improving as we go along each season.
Look, I obviously can't comment about other clubs, but I will say that I'm extremely happy where we are. 3 years ago, our club started almost from zero. A lot of players left, got a new CEO. And if you had said, as I said to the players this morning, you're going to be in a quarterfinal, semi-final, and a final in 3 seasons. You're going to come second on the log in your 3rd year and host a semi-final. I don't think there's any guy who's involved with a Bulls supporter, board member, CEO, that wouldn't have said, right, let's sign on the dotted line, we take that. Nothing's changed. I mean, today, guys, Grobby's front row, Grobby's and Francois Kloppers and Ruan Vermaak and Ruan Nokia, none of them are older than 27. Now, then you get Cameron Honeycomb, 21. We can't fast track anything other than the fact that we can put them in that environment, put them in that situation, and they grow. And I started the press conference by saying to you, I'm really happy by the way that we showed that we've learned from the last 2 years. Now, this time last year we lost to the Stormers, and we probably made as many mistakes, but we found a way today to show resilience. That last block of defence there, let's be fair. That last block of defence, we wouldn't have defended like that 3 years ago. There's no ways. And it's got nothing to do with attitude or are they good enough or we would have made a judgment error and it would have cost us. So, yeah, I'm really happy where the Bulls are. We're still growing. Every boy in the squad now, barring 2 which are very close to signing, have signed till 2027. And that is going to be the nicest feeling in the world for me, is when we run out the tunnel, instead of having a guy run out today, like Stenkamp, playing 50 games, in 3 years' time, hopefully there's 4 guys that are running out with 100 and, 5 guys running out with 50 and the rest between 50 and 100, 75, 85 games. Then you can compete. Then you have seasoned campaigners that are a bit harder. Let's be fair. Guys 27, 28 is physically more mature, physically tougher, physically more of a man than a youngster who's coming through the ranks. And so I'm really happy. And we got a massive challenge. Don't want to underestimate anything. We get Leinster, they're 17 all up. Probably put all their reserves on now and make sure their starting lineup's fresh. So they'll be coming here with a win and the whole squad that haven't had to play 80 minutes of attritional rugby. But, that's the nice thing about being here, is no one really thinks we can beat Leinster like they didn't a couple of years ago, and we got it right. So, again, say to you, I wish that this goes out to all the public. If I have to speak Afrikaans, manne asseblief kom beloftes toe. Ons het julle nodig. Jy weet, elke persoon wat die bulle lief hê, moet volgende Saterdag hierso wees. Dis my oproep na almal. As hulle kom en die beskare is hierso, ek is heeltemal seker ons gaan 'n ekstra speler op die veld hê. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good.